Dr. Dennis Leahy is our first everyday hero to be honored tonight. 30 years ago, heart attack patients were treated with morphine and bed rest. But today, thanks to cardiologists like Dr. Leahy, they're surviving their events because they're being rapidly transported to the cardiac catheterization lab to have their blocked arteries opened with emergency angioplasty.
Many, many years ago, this was thought to be completely insane, to go into an artery as it's blocking off and the patient's unstable. And studies became clear that people who had an intervention at the time they had their heart attack did extremely well. The idea behind the dial don't drive problem was we were trying to educate the community that if you are someone who may be having a heart attack and you have chest pain and you think this might be a heart attack, to encourage them to use the 911 system. Whereas a walk-in patient comes to the ER, goes to be triaged. By that time, they're at least a half hour behind the schedule they would have been on had they called 911. And that half hour can actually make a big difference. I mean, it's extremely gratifying to see the results. I mean, you have someone who arrives perhaps on death's doorstep who goes home 36 hours later from the hospital fine. So I think the Heart Association and all of us want people to understand, look at yourself, see what your risks are, and if that symptom comes along, you've got to recognize this is not indigestion, this isn't a pulled muscle, this is your heart until proven otherwise. Well, I'm tremendously honored to be here tonight, and I want to thank the Heart Association for selecting me among the other doctors that are here. The Heart Association has done a great deal for our careers professionally and has done a lot for me personally, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Tonight we're celebrating the tremendous success of organizations like the American Heart Association in trying to prevent heart disease. But the successes of the last 30 years haven't been enjoyed by our minority communities to the extent that they should. Dr. Bob Gillespie is trying to change that.
That has to be changed. It is something that we cannot tolerate in such a great country. We consider the United States the greatest country in the entire world. And for us to have citizens who are not getting basic health care and basic needs on the same level is not acceptable. Being African American, I think there's a natural connection to want to help those that are underserved. There's an organization called the Association of Black Cardiologists that I've been involved with for many years. And we talked about a program called the Heart Beats program, and we conceived an idea that we would go out in the community and train people to go to their respective communities and teach about all the problems related to heart disease. And the whole idea here is the only way that we're going to ever make a dent in these kinds of problems is through education and through understanding the importance of adhering to not smoking cigarettes, understanding that obesity is a problem, understanding that if you don't exercise that you're going to have hypertension, and diabetes is an epidemic. You don't do this expecting recognition, especially what I do. I never expected the American Heart Association to recognize this. It was done strictly to make a difference. But it's very nice when you're recognized, and there's no denying that.
When I went into practice in 1982, patients with end-stage heart disease had two choices: comfort care or frequent trips to the hospital. Thankfully, the last 30 years has resulted in tremendous improvement of therapy, including mechanical assist devices. And a perfect example of this success is Mr. John Merrill.
Well, when my heart started malfunctioning, I didn't know it was a fatal process. I didn't even really understand what congestive heart failure meant. And so Dr. Ostrander was kind enough to explain all that to me, and was happy to point out that there is a fix for that now that hasn't been around too long in this LVAD equipment that takes the place of my failing left ventricle and restores the efficiency of the flow of blood produced by the pump. Dembitsky was the surgeon that Dr. Ostrander handed me off to. Dr. Dembitsky is a regular down-to-earth guy, and so is his wife. If you would see them socially, you would have a hard time understanding that he is a world-renowned heart surgeon.
Well, I decided early on that I'm a self-admitted technophile, and I wanted to try to bring high technology to patients, the everyday people like myself and you. It's past the can we do it stage. It's moved through the should we do it stage. Now it's into the how do we do it best stage, in my opinion.
It is such a restoration of your life. I couldn't walk 20 feet without getting short of breath, and my stamina was extremely limited. My circulation is so much better. My stamina is as normal as it's ever been in recent life. It's nice to be back and among the living and spend some more of my life with my wife and my wonderful family and friends.
I think the mission statement for the AHA is trying to prevent suffering and death from cardiovascular disease. I'm glad they acknowledge the work, and hopefully it'll allow more people to understand exactly what we have been doing here in San Diego.
The transformation of cardiovascular care that this generation is enjoying was possible only because of the scientific research of the last generation. Dr. Kurt Knowlton, a physician scientist at UCSD, is making sure that the next generation will continue to enjoy this progress.
So as a physician scientist, I actually completed all of my training in clinical cardiology first, and then joined a laboratory and became very excited about the prospects of identifying transformational concepts that could change the way we think about certain kinds of heart diseases. And so I spent a lot of my career focusing on some of those basic mechanisms and understanding them, but at the same time, I still take care of patients. I work in the hospital, do heart catheterization, simple heart catheterization, etc. So I'm able to see some of both of those, and that's obviously a very fulfilling career from that perspective. I can ask myself, would I have made it without help from the American Heart Association? And I'm not sure the answer would be a strong yes, to tell you the truth. It's that important, the funding that we receive from the American Heart Association to pursue these investigative tracks. It means a lot that I could be recognized as someone who has contributed in some way to the understanding of cardiovascular disease. And I think the American Heart Association has had such a powerful impact in my life and in the lives of so many people that I see that I'm very happy to always be a part of the American Heart Association, and that they would recognize the small contribution that I might have made. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to have received this recognition from the American Heart Association.
For over 75 years, the American Heart Association has been working to prevent heart disease through sponsorship of scientific research, physician scientists in training, community education, and much more. But we can't do it without your support. Tonight's the night for you to get on board. Tonight's the night for us to make a difference. Thank you for your support.